Here is the little cable stitch that I'm going to show you how to knit. I've cast on in DK about 25-26 stitches, something like that. You can just see I've got a couple of little twists going already, so let's get on to knitting it. So here is the little cable pattern that I'm going to show you. What I've done is knitted some what they call foundation or setup rows. You can see I've got some purl, some knitting, some purl, a little bit more. So the cables which are knitted are actually standing out nicely amongst the purl stitches. It won't always be like that in cables that you're knitting, but that's the most common way to do it. There are two things to remember about cable knitting. One is the direction that your twist is going to go, depending on whether your cable needle is at the front or at the back when you're cabling, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But if you're holding your stitches to the front, your twist, as this one, is going to go off to the left. If you're holding it to the back, then the twist is going to go off to the right. The other second thing to remember about cabling is that you need to count your rows quite carefully. If you think you're at a cable row, you probably aren't. You probably need to do a few more rows. This has got 8 rows in between each cable. It doesn't look like that because of the twist, because of the way the twist works. So just count your rows really carefully when you're following a pattern, because if you think you're at a cable row, as I said, you probably aren't. So I'm just using a DPN here, by the way, a double pointed needle. You can get cable needles, and they'll have like a little dip here which supposedly helps your stitches stay on the needle. They do work quite well, and if you've got them, then use them, but if not, just a double pointed needle or even a pencil or something like that could work if you were desperate. So let's untangle myself from my needles, and I'm going to do a couple of purl stitches. I am on a cable row here, so I'm going to go straight into it. So I've done 3 purl stitches, and I'm going to slip the next 3 stitches onto my cable needle, and I'm going to hold them at the front of my work whilst I move my yarn to the back and then start knitting these stitches here. So I'm going to knit 3, and then I'm going to bring these stitches up to meet my right hand needle, and I'm going to knit them from the cable needle, and that's going to create the cable twist. Now I'm going to go back to my pattern and my little setup foundation rows. So I'm purling 2 here, knitting 2, and then purling 2, and then I've got another cable to work. So take my yarn to the back, slip 1, 2, 3 stitches in this instance onto the cable needle, holding them to the front, knit the stitches from my left hand needle, the next 3 stitches, and then I'm going to knit those from my cable needle. It looks quite tricky. You're using 3 needles, but it isn't nearly as complex as you might think. Your first cables will probably be quite holy because your tension will be really loose, but just keep practicing, it'll be fine. So there we go. I'm just going to do another few rows, and there you go. I've done a little cable stitch. Now I've got 8 rows in between each, so I'm just going to fast forward and knit a few 8 rows, and then I can take you through another cable row. Right, so I'm just on the 7th row, just fast forwarded a little bit there. So the next row is going to be my cable row. Just, you can see the back here of what the cables look like on the back. It's a little bit puckered there where we've twisted the stitches. Let's go to the end here. Now what I was going to tell you also about cable stitches is the way that cables are written in a pattern. Very often people get quite confused by it, because this pattern, for example, we've got 6 stitches in total that are involved with the cable. So it's these 6 stitches here that are involved with the cable. But you saw that I just slipped 3 stitches onto the cable needle, knitted 3 and then went back to my 3 there. So what we're doing with that 6 stitches is that we're dividing it basically. So that would be written C for cable, 6 for the total amount of stitches involved, and F to indicate that we're holding the cable needle to the front of the work. It could easily be C6B, meaning cable, 6 stitches in total, so 3 onto your cable needle, knit the 3 from your cable needle, and you're going to be holding the cable needle to the back. That's what the B stands for. So let's just show you one more time the basic cable stitch. Not all cable patterns are written like that. Sometimes they'll confuse you a little bit. And for instance, if it says C4F or C4B, it's unlikely that it's going to be 2 stitches. It could be, and you'll need to have a look at your pattern and you'll need to have a look at the pictures that it shows you as to whether those cables are very small. If they are, then yes, it means cable 2 stitches onto your cable needle, and then knit 2 and then go back to the ones on your cable needle. But usually if you've got more than, say, if it tells you more than, say, 4 stitches, 4 to 6 perhaps, then that means that you divide that number in the middle. So we've just done 1 cable there. Oh, getting ahead of myself, just knitting 2. I'm purling 2 before I get back to the cable. So 1, 2, 3 to the front. Oh, yarn to the back because I'm going to be knitting. I don't want to make an extra stitch. 1, 2, 3, and then knit the 3 from my cable needle. There we are. The beauty of having circular needles, I knit everything on circular needles whether I'm knitting straight or not. The beauty of having circular needles is that, as you can see there, when I dropped that left hand needle to knit the stitches from my cable needle, it didn't go anywhere, it didn't fall on the floor, I didn't lose my stitches. It's quite handy really to use circular needles. So there you are, there you have it. There's our second row of cable